What is up, you beauties? My name is BatchatBegins, and welcome to the channel. Today, we are going to be talking about some new and upcoming tanks into World of Tanks Blitz, and we're starting off with the big one, the one that is going into testing soon. That is the Kampfpanzer 50T. Now, the reason why I've chosen a 140 for the gameplay is if you look at the armor, which I will go ahead and show on screen a couple times now, both for the, and this is using an E5 to shoot it, one with the E5 with AP, one with the E5 with heat, and one with the E5 shooting heat at it hull down. As you can see, it doesn't have fantastic turret or hull armor, and so that's why I chose the 140 today. Now, the 140 does have better hull armor than the Kampfpanzer here, but the thing is, this thing is going to be very finicky when it comes to getting its shots out. It has to basically stay back and save its HP and let the friendly team basically take all of the aggro, because this thing cannot bounce shots when it is hull down, basically. And that's going to be a problem, seeing as this thing is in tier 10. Now, we don't know if they're going to buff the armor. This thing is a tier 9 premium on World of Tanks PC, so Wargaming is at some liberty to change the stats, so we may see that get reworked. Another thing to take a look at on PC is that the KPF has 320 alpha damage, meaning that it is rocking probably a 100mm gun, and it has a very subpar DPM, just about 2400. But the good news is that it has very decent penetration, which is more or less like the rest of the German tanks at that tier. So we can expect a very punchy gun, something that has good penetration, but potentially we're not going to be seeing it have high alpha. We might see it have a Russian medium tank alpha, that is 310 on the 140, the 62A, and the T22. So potentially we could be seeing a tank that doesn't have a ton of armor and has some moderately low alpha damage. But the good news is that the KPZ 50T has a 60km top speed limit, meaning it's going to be very mobile and can traverse the map very decently. It's also going to have 8 degrees of gun depression, which I think is very solid. So overall, I think the tank's looking pretty decent. It's going to be one of those tanks that not every person buys. It's not like the AMX 31er, which is very decent hull down. It's going to really have to work for its damage. So if you're into that kind of thing, where you go ahead and look for those spots to go ahead and take out the enemy and not take any damage in return, then you'll like this tank, I think. You know, if you're able to work for your damage consistently. And just like this 140 driver, he's not being hyper aggressive because he knows he can get absolutely deleted. So I feel like that's how most KPZ 50T players are going to have to play. Now, if we move along and take a look at some other tanks that Wargaming is bringing into the game, I'm sure you'd be very excited to see what they have in store for us. Now, the next tank on this list that we're going to be talking about is the AE Phase 1, and this tank has been in testing, and I've come up against it a couple of times. This thing is going to be an absolute monster at tier 9. If you guys thought that the M103 was underpowered, well, get ready, because they're basically bringing in a premium E5 at tier 9. It's going to have similar stats to the E5's gun. It's going to have that 120mm alpha damage. It's going to have very decent penetration, and it's going to have a monstrous hold down presence. So if you guys were ever disappointed and bought yourself a T95 E6 with that giant cupola on top, and find yourself struggling going hull down against tier 10s and tier 9s, even tier 8s sometimes, well, good news, because this tank is going to be an absolute monster. Like I said, it's got that 120mm gun. It's going to have that 400 or so alpha damage, and it's just going to be absolutely ripping through teams. And as we all know, the E5 is a current monster in the meta, both in public matches and in comp. So I think that this tank is going to absolutely tear things up when platooned together or just playing solo. I've seen some of the stats of the testers, because if you didn't know, if you look at the testers' accounts when they're playing these tanks, those tanks will show up, and I've seen stats for it. This thing can get up into the mid 3000s for average damage per battle, or even up to 4,000 for these people. And they're just playing this tank constantly, getting some games in it, and I think it's going to be an absolute monster. Now, the last tank on our list today that we're going to talk about, which is coming into the game very soon, is the Object 907. And this tank is basically what replaced the T-22 medium on PC as the standard go-to Russian medium comp tank. This thing has a rounded hull, So it's actually going to be a lot easier to bounce shots when you're going hull down with the 907, and it still has that very troll side armor profile. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this tank as well, because everybody knows that the Russian medium tank guns are absolutely deadly. But if you can get a consistent armor profile on those things, they'll be an absolute nightmare to deal with. We all know just how annoying it is to face a T-22 medium when they go hull down. The turret is basically impenetrable unless you're playing like a Ho-Ri or a Jagdpanzer firing heat at them, or the premium rounds. So if the 907 lives up to its name and ends up being the go-to comp tank, we might see the meta of free-to-play players just absolutely dominating quick tournaments. So while I am looking forward to playing this tank, I hope they don't overtune it so much that it becomes the next spamming tank in public battles, because not the biggest fan of getting my ass kicked constantly by a team of Super Unicum T-22 drivers, and I'm not looking forward to getting my ass, handed to me by a couple of 907 drivers that's what all they play, But I'm looking forward to seeing how they deal with the rounded hull, whether or not the turret's going to be super broken. We all know that it's going to have that 100mm gun, so we'll have that 310 alpha damage with average to low standard pen penetration and pretty poor heat penetration, but that can all be changed when you go ahead and put on those calibrated shells. So that will be very nice, and yes, it does go about 50, so it'll have average mobility. So I'm looking forward to seeing just how strong the 907 is going to be. Let me know, out of the 3 tanks mentioned today, which tank are you most looking forward to? For me, it's got to be the AE Phase 1, but I'd love to hear from the rest of you guys, see what your opinions are. If you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. There will be more coming soon. My name has been BatchatBegins, and I will see you guys in the next one.